the second person to say that today, sir.
Well, did you laugh for the first one? You didn't laugh for that one. What is it? Are you guys all tired or something?
Personal liberty. It's right behind you.
Look, I'm all for taking down the barrier. I mean,
Let's do it.
and just
Blaming it on the Secret Service.
and look, when the Obama administration shut down the World War II memorial, I joined the veterans in taking those barriers down too. So I'm all for defending our liberties and removing the barriers we have.
Senator Cruz, ethanol is very big in Iowa. You oppose it. Do you think Iowans are changing on ethanol, or are you just going to go against most Republicans on the issue?
Listen, my view on energy is I support all of the above. I support ethanol, I support biofuels. I think God has blessed this country with abundant natural resources, oil, gas, coal, nuclear, wind, solar, ethanol, and we should pursue all of them. But you shouldn't have government picking winners and losers. Indeed, my tax plan that I've introduced eliminates every subsidy across the board for energy. It eliminates oil subsidies, it eliminates all energy subsidies, and lets energy producers compete on an open playing field. And one of the things that I am committed to doing is expanding market access to ethanol. Right now you see federal regulatory barriers. You see the EPA blocking ethanol's ability to access the market. As president, I will remove those barriers, and so at the end of the day, energy will be determined by competition in the marketplace, but we will not have the federal government putting artificial barriers in place and engaging in the cronyism of Washington picking winners and losers.
Would ethanol survive without the RFS?
Not only would ethanol survive without the RFS, ethanol can and will grow. There is a market demand for ethanol. Ethanol adds octane to gasoline in an environmentally responsible manner. And right now, the barrier to ethanol expanding is the federal government. It is the EPA's blend wall limits that are prohibiting ethanol from expanding. And if we remove those barriers, ethanol will have a larger market share than it does today. And as president, I am committed to removing those barriers and allowing the marketplace to decide. And ethanol is a mature product for which there is significant demand in the marketplace.
The industry
You said
has
earlier
made you,
today that you're
Senator,
going to do everything necessary to take out ISIS. I'm wondering, does that include American boots on the ground? Is that something you're willing to support?
If boots on the ground are necessary, we should do what is militarily necessary. But the proper way to think about this is setting the objective at the outset, defeating and utterly destroying ISIS. Once that objective is there, you want to follow the best military guidance. You know, you see some presidential candidates who treat boots on the ground like they're engaging in a game of Risk. I want to move 5,000, I want to move 10,000 troops, and it's a way of sort of one-upping each other. The job of the commander-in-chief is to set the objective. The objective should be to utterly destroy ISIS. Now, once we set that objective, I spend a great deal of time meeting with military leaders, generals and admirals, both current and retired. And the advice that I'm receiving is that we need to start with using overwhelming air power. You know, right now, if you compare what we're doing now to what we've done in the past, in the first Persian Gulf War, we launched roughly 1,100 air attacks a day. It was saturation carpet bombing. We did that for 37 days. After 37 days of 1,100 air attacks a day, our troops moved in 36 hours and mopped up what little remained of the Iraqi army. In contrast, President Obama is launching between 15 and 30 air attacks a day. It is pinprick and photo op foreign policy. It's a bomb for CNN, but it doesn't actually do anything meaningful to kill the terrorists. We need to do saturation carpet bombing directed at ISIS.
Followed by American troops.
And that includes, by the way, taking out the oil facilities. You know, one of the most stunning bits of testimony that occurred recently in Congress was Mr. Morrell telling Congress that the Obama administration didn't take out the ISIS oil fields because they were concerned about global warming. This lunacy of the Obama administration, where they think the SUV in your driveway is a greater risk to national security than a jihadist who wants to murder you, that makes no sense. We should take out the oil fields, we should take out the processing facilities, and we should not be guided by the political correctness of the Obama administration. Now, in combination with overwhelming air power, we should also be arming the Kurds. The Kurds, the Peshmerga, are incredibly effective fighters. They are longtime allies of America. Right now, ISIS is fighting with American military equipment that they have seized from Iraq. The Kurds are using outmoded military equipment, and yet the Obama administration, for political reasons, refuses to arm the Kurds because it would upset Baghdad. That doesn't make any sense. The Kurds are, in a very real sense, boots on the ground. And then beyond that, we may well need special forces to direct the air power. But this shouldn't be driven.
What about conventional combat troops?
It should be driven by the military necessities, and we should start with overwhelming air power and arming the Kurds, and we should do whatever is necessary to defeat and destroy
So you
ISIS.
won't rule out anything.
We should do whatever is necessary to defeat and destroy ISIS.
Senator, last question. Go after the families of terrorists and attack them as well. Do you agree with that?
It has never been U.S. policy to target civilians. The object should be to target the terrorists. And as I have said, if I am elected president and you are a militant anywhere on the face of the globe and you go and join ISIS, you wage jihad against America, then you are signing your death warrant. But the target should be the terrorist, and we need a commander-in-chief who directly goes after them.
Senator, how do you beat Donald Trump?
Last question.
The FBI is.
How do you beat Donald Trump in Iowa?
Well, I'll tell you what we're seeing right now in Iowa, and we're seeing this across the country, is that conservatives are uniting behind our campaign. And, you know, for much of this past year, you look at national poll numbers, they tend to be driven by name ID, they tend to be driven by how often the news media mentions someone's name on the 6 o'clock news. As we get into December, as we get into January, as we get into February, caucus goers, primary voters are beginning to examine the candidates closely, are beginning to look to the records of each of the candidates. And what we're seeing every day is that conservatives are uniting behind our campaign, that they are looking not for a campaign conservative who talks a good game on the trail. They want a consistent conservative, someone who has been the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, someone who's been a fiscal conservative, a social conservative, and a national security conservative. And I think also, in the wake of the Paris attack, in the wake of San Bernardino, voters are looking for a strong commander-in-chief. Voters are looking for a president who they can trust to keep America safe, to kill the terrorists, to secure the borders, and to protect the lives of American citizens. That's what I intend to do, and I think it is a significant part of the reason why we are seeing such tremendous momentum behind our campaign, is that people want a strong commander-in-chief who will defend America first.
Would Donald Trump not be a strong commander-in-chief?
The ability to gain phone metadata beyond 2 years. Does not concern you that it makes their investigation, FBI's investigation into these killers, more difficult?
Well, if you look at this San Bernardino attack, we know the FBI has already searched the records, and the phone companies on the USA Freedom Act have those phone records.
But beyond 2 years.
But not only that, the intelligence community told Congress that the USA Freedom Act expands significantly the universe of phone records that can be searched. So we're now able to search more phone records than we were under the prior program. That is an important expansion, that it covers a much broader universe. And here's the simple reality. The reason why this terror attack occurred is not that the federal government needs to seize yet more private information from law-abiding citizens. We will not be safer with Lois Lerner listening to our phone calls and reading every email by law-abiding citizens. We will be safer when we have a federal government that targets the bad guys. That is the most systematic failing of the Obama administration when it comes to national security, is they fail to distinguish between good guys and bad guys. When you have a president who won't say the words radical Islamic terrorism, when you have a president who maddeningly enough insists the Islamic State isn't Islamic, the consequence of this is our law enforcement is not targeting the bad guys. So if you look back 5 years ago to the Fort Hood terrorist attack, Nidal Hassan, we knew, had communicated with Anwar al-Awlaki, a known radical Islamic cleric. We knew he had asked about the permissibility of waging jihad against his fellow soldiers, and yet the Obama administration did nothing to stop that terror attack. Likewise, with the Boston bombers. We knew the Zarnaf brothers were radical Islamic terrorists. We knew they were having communications. The FBI interviewed them. But then they dropped the ball. They stopped monitoring them. The elder Zarnaf brother posted on YouTube a call to jihad. and the Obama administration didn't notice because they weren't paying attention to the radical Islamic terrorists. We should have prevented the bombing at the Boston Marathon if we had been targeting the bad guys. And you look at San Bernardino. What happened in San Bernardino with these two jihadists? We know they had multiple contacts with people on our terror watch list, and yet apparently the Obama administration did not identify these individuals before this terror attack occurs. We know that this individual, the male jihadist, flew to the Middle East. We know that the female jihadist was having communications with ISIS leaders using social media, pledging her allegiance to ISIS, and yet again, the Obama administration failed to act to prevent this terror attack, and the reason is they devote their energy to going after law-abiding citizens. What was the response of President Obama and Hillary Clinton and far too many members of the news media to this terror attack in San Bernardino? It was to go after the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens to keep and bear arms. We don't stop the bad guys by taking away our guns. We stop the bad guys by using our guns. And we need to be protecting law-abiding citizens and targeting terrorists. And as president, I will focus the national security and law enforcement apparatus of this country on radical Islamic terrorism. We will defeat radical Islamic terrorism with a single-minded focus of preventing these attacks before they occur, not reacting after the fact, trying to pick up the pieces, trying to piece together what should have been there. We will focus on the bad guys and draw a distinction between jihadists who have pledged to murder innocent Americans and the innocent Americans who are exercising their constitutional rights.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Iowa